Welcome everyone to our latest episode of Unmuted, and this is a very special one today because we have three amazing women joining us for an International Women's Day special. So thank you Jeanette, Leslie and Rona for joining me today. To get things started, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us your current role and the path that has led you there, and then we can get into some of the questions that we've got for you then. I will go to you first, Rona, if you wouldn't mind starting things off.
Oh, sure. So I'm Rona Driggs. I'm the CEO of Empresaria Group. I've been with the group for about 4 years, and the path that led me here was an opportunity that came up where I was able to expand my knowledge and experience globally. So it's an exciting opportunity for me and one that I truly enjoy. We span 19 countries, so I've learned a lot in the last several years.
Thanks so much. Jeanette?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeanette Marks. I'm the CEO of AirSwift. I'm based in Houston, Texas. I've been here for coming up on 9 years now. And I started in the world of staffing with the Adecco Group and spent the first 19 years of my career there. And I would say what got me here was being really open-minded. So being open-minded to new adventures, new callings, saying yes to taking on challenges that I didn't dream of taking on before. And when you say yes, it's amazing what can happen.
Thank you, and Leslie.
Thank you, Lauren, for having us, and Kyloe for hosting this session for us. Such an important day, International Women's Day and Women's History Month. So thank you for recognizing all of us and the industry at large. I'm Leslie Vickery. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Clear Edge Marketing. We are a fully integrated marketing agency focused on all things talent and technology. I also co-founded a group called ARA, which stands for Attract, Retain, and Advance Women in Technology, with two of my closest friends, Megan McCann and Jane Himner. We have about 6,000 people who are part of that program. What really brought me to this topic and my passion around this, I did grow up in the staffing industry. I started back in '98 and started my company 16 years ago. Really saw a need in the market for enhanced marketing and the ability for companies to invest in branding and marketing and so forth. But over time, I noticed also some challenges of DE&I within our own industry and another industry I love so much in technology, and felt like there was an opportunity to bring the conversation to the forefront and make some change within our space. So I'm excited to share those stories and how actually the three of us came together, Jeanette, Rona, and I, and 12 other women with Lady Leaders Book Club and Together We Rise. So thank you again for having us.
I'm going to ask you about Lady Leaders Book Club in a minute, but I've just realized I forgot to introduce myself, so I'll do that quickly. I am Lauren Miller. I'm Kyloe's Global Marketing and Communications Manager. I've been with the company for around 4 years now and really enjoying it and the opportunities that it's bringing me, including this one with the three of you here today. So with the Lady Leaders Book Club, can I ask how the group came together?
Sure.
Leslie,
Do you want me to take
I
that
think
one?
That's yours. Yeah. I think that's yours, well, Leslie. You get full credit for it.
Just for marketing purposes, Together We Rise, the output and outcome of our group. But effectively, back in March of 2020, we were all headed to Miami. Ironically, we're all headed there again next week, I think most of us, for Executive Forum, SIA's Executive Forum. And we were going to celebrate our dear friend and fellow co-author, Joyce Russell, who was publishing her first book, The Cherry on Top. And as you can imagine, March 2020, pandemic hits. We canceled our amazing dinner plans. And what was fascinating is it was 15 women. Not everyone knew each other. So we were bringing together a group of people to celebrate Joyce and really the common ground of rising up women. So that was really our original intention. When the pandemic hit, we did what everyone did. We did a Zoom call to celebrate her book, and we had a little mini book club. And then someone on the call said, hey, we should do a book club. And you have to imagine, Lauren, at the time, a lot of us, and I think Rona, you, especially you, had just started at Empresaria not that long after Lauren was just starting her own company. In fact, her launch was going to be at Executive Forum. So you had a lot of people who were running global operations, publicly traded companies, starting new jobs. There was a lot of fear and worry within all of us, for our families, our health, and our jobs, and our companies and our teams. So we came together originally as a book club, thinking, well, we'll join forces and do that. And then it ended up turning into so much more: great, amazing friendships, doing business together, partnering together, really the sisterhood and a tribe that we could have never imagined. Had we had that dinner, it probably would not have grown into what it has today. So we're really fortunate. But we had an author say, you all should write a book and tell your story. And ultimately, that's how Together We Rise came about.
Which I think the most beautiful part too, as we were working through this, is executive women don't just do a normal book club. They call the authors and have the authors come
Yes.
on and do the book club. And
Yes.
like,
I
what an
know.
amazing book
Yes.
club. What an amazing
Yes.
concept. Why not ask?
Yeah.
And I think something else that's really important too is that we were there to support each other and share our real life business challenges with each other and lean into each other during what was a very difficult time for everyone, and especially leaders in the staffing industry. So we're really blessed that we had these strong leaders to lean into as we were navigating our way through, or navigating our businesses through COVID. So that was also really extraordinary, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we cooked together, Lauren. We had a chef come in and we made lasagna together. We worked out together. It truly turned into something special. And we're coming up on the year anniversary, actually, of our book launch, which is on International Women's Day. So we have an audio version. Do a quick plug coming out here shortly. But it was fascinating. It was the launch of the book was the first time several of the lady leaders had ever met in person.
Wow.
2 years later from joining the club. So it is amazing
Crazy.
what you can do virtually if you open yourselves up to forming friendships and really being there for one another. It's a true testament of women coming together to rise each other up.
One of the things that stuck out to me as we're talking now is having that network of women around you to connect with and lean on and help lift each other up. How have you found that's changed for yourselves as you've risen up in your career?
I found that I've grown more into it, and I have a better network than I've ever had before. And as I've grown in my career, it's been interesting how, like, it's almost like a mindset shift that's happened where women are supporting women more now than ever before. And the different groups that I belong to and the different networking that I do, women, they care, they really care. And so this has been something incredibly special with Together We Rise and this group, but then there's other groups out there too. So if you're listening to this and wondering, how do I get involved? There are so many different networking associations or different areas that you can get involved and find your own circle. But sometimes it takes work too, to start pulling together the women that you really lean on and let them get to know each other, and then let that build, and then let it build even further so you can replicate this and really build it out in your own community.
And I think you have to put yourself out there. That was one thing that I don't think I did very well 5 or 6 years ago, right? Is really put myself out there. And thanks to this lovely lady, Leslie, on the phone, we had a conversation one day, and I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing that day. And she really was like, Rana, you need to put yourself out there. And it really kind of had me think about why I hadn't done that before, right? I was so focused on my job and being a mother and all of these other things, but I never put the focus of really putting myself out there to be open to having these conversations and these relationships with other women, whether it be other women or men, whoever it was, right? I think it's really important, like Jeanette said, is there's so many groups and ways to get involved. You just have to put yourself out there. And I'm still working on that, by the way.
I think what quite often people find is they don't have the confidence to take that first step. Maybe people being able to do this virtually now kind of helps them ease into it. But do you have any other tips for anyone that feels less confident and shy about putting themselves out?
I think confidence is definitely one of the biggest barriers to women rising up, and they need to just remember that they are enough, to find grace in themselves, and to remember you're not alone. So when you reach out and you start joining groups and so forth, you realize that a lot of women feel the same exact way, and in numbers, which can really make a difference. But I do think confidence is one of the hardest things to get past. It's something that I work on, almost every day, and doing different things to rebuild that up. But you have to put yourself out there to do something and just get involved. Our industry, we're so fortunate. ASA has done a phenomenal job, and Jeanette's on the board of ASA, of helping put together a wonderful mentoring program. They have a women in leadership program. They have an idea group for DE&I. They've really done a nice job in the past 2 years of investing in finding ways to bring people together to make it easier. I think back early in my career and growing up in staffing, and we didn't have anything like we have today. There weren't conferences dedicated to rising up women. I don't remember celebrating the days or the months that we were celebrating women. You know, women in a lot of cases were working against each other, trying to fill top C-suite spots because they felt like there weren't that many seats to have. And it's really unfortunate. And then growing up now, looking at it, saying, wow, imagine if we had all of these things then, but we have them now, and we're really setting up that next generation to be even more successful. There's no shortage of ways to get involved. The biggest challenge people have is they only get involved in their company, not outside of the company. The more you can expose yourself outside of the company, the more you'll learn and grow.
I'll add to that as well, because there are so many things to get involved with, but don't be a passenger. It's not about just showing up and saying you were there and leaving. It's about participating and volunteering and really, raising your hand to do more than just showing up. So if you really want to build a close circle, for instance, this last week, I just passed the baton of my chairmanship for the Greater Houston Women's Chamber, and we did our volunteer luncheon for everybody. It was an amazing group of professional women plus male allies in the room cheering everybody on. And there are so many different connections that were made there. And to have the confidence to introduce yourself to somebody new, or to say congratulations to one of the Volunteers of the Year awardee, or to reach out and say, I volunteer to be part of that committee, and really get involved, that's where your confidence can start to grow too. So if you're lacking confidence in an area, just volunteer and put yourself in a place where you have to voice something, where you have to be part of something, and you'll be amazed at how confidence creates confidence. And the more you do that, the more confident you'll become.
Yeah. And I would say, I would just add one more, that you really have to be an advocate for yourself. Self-advocacy is so important, and it's important that you challenge your self-doubts, and you really, practice, get yourself out there and really practice to build that level of confidence, and make sure that you're an advocate for yourself first, because you're not going to be successful in being an advocate for anyone else unless you do it for yourself first.
I agree, 100%. Be your own best champion out there.
You've mentioned seeing things changing throughout your career in terms of gender biases. And do you have any stories that you'd feel comfortable sharing about a memorable moment in your career where you felt challenged because of your gender and how you overcame that?
I'll throw out a story about how I think sometimes our gender, being female, we limit ourselves. And we do it to ourselves versus we always think somebody else is doing it to us. But sometimes we need to take ownership for how we view the world and what we're doing. And I grew up in California. And whenever I got my annual review and it said, will you relocate? Nope. Anywhere in California, just California. Who's going to leave California? And I was talking to my dad about it one day, who's been one of my key mentors throughout my whole career. And he asked me one simple question. He said, Jeanette, why are you limiting yourself? And I was like, whoa, Dad, you want me to leave California? What are you talking about? He's like, no, why are you limiting yourself? And we got into the whole conversation of, well, I never thought I would go away. And he's like, yeah, but you're not giving yourself the chance to say yes or no to something great. So I said, okay, fine, challenge taken. I said, yes, we'll relocate. Within 5 months, I was getting tapped on the shoulder to become a senior vice president for the East Coast and to move across country and take on a huge role. I think a lot of times when we think about what holds us back, sometimes it's ourselves. And we need to remove those barriers and that mindset and open ourselves up to the possibilities and really weigh them once you have the opportunity, not before you've even been presented it.
Yeah,
Great
that's
advice.
Absolutely.
I'll share a gender bias situation where, and it's interesting because if you hear about imposter syndrome, a lot of times Jeanette, you're 100% spot on. We can put other people's doubts or limitations that they may have about themselves, and they may then project that on us to then fuel into our own imposter syndrome. So you may walk into a situation feeling perfectly fine and confident, but someone else's issues become your imposter syndrome issue. So for me, I've had to really think about that and reflect on it, because a couple of situations I've had, and I do talk about these in the book in my chapter as well. One in particular, I was going to a conference and we were sponsoring the conference. So new CEO coming in, you know, I was definitely having to build myself up and give myself the internal monologue pep talk. I show up and I see a group of people at the welcome reception, and Robin Nee was there, who's one of the authors in the book as well. And a tip for networking, if you don't love doing it or you don't know anyone, just really try to find someone you do know. Even if they're in the middle of a big conversation, they will welcome you in. Most people will welcome you in, but it can be intimidating going to conferences or events and so forth. So I saw Robin, went right to her, and we were in a big group of people having a conversation, and a pretty well-known male CEO in the industry had looked at me specifically and said, "Hey, Leslie, well, I see you in your bikini at the pool party." So after the opening reception, there was a pool party, and I didn't know what to say. I immediately kind of froze, and Robin, thank God, came to my rescue and used her voice. So it taught me something really important, which was to use my voice and see it, say it moment. And if someone was in a situation where I saw something happen and they weren't confident enough, or sometimes you can't think of what to say and you leave the situation and you're like, I wish I would have thought of this to say, which was me in that moment, but to speak up for other people and have their backs too. So that was a real learning lesson for me. And coming out of that, fast forward several years later, I ended up getting pregnant at 42. I had my son at 43, and I was at a coffee meeting with one of my mentors, and he was a client, a mentor, really great, phenomenal person. And I was so excited to share the news that I was pregnant. And he said, "Oh, well, what are you going to do with your company?" Basically like insinuating that I was going to close it. And I said, you know, listen, you have a company and you have a daughter. How did you do it? Maybe you could be my mentor. In that moment, fortunately, I thought of something on the fly, but I also turned it into a learning moment for him because I could see he was kind of taken aback. But those two situations for me were, you know, real gender bias issues. Women have run companies for many, many years. They've started companies. My grandmother was an entrepreneur. I grew up with it. So it wasn't unusual or different for me, but it does happen. It still happens. And you just have to be confident to use it as a learning stance and use your voice for yourself and for others.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a similar story where I was, you know, expecting my first daughter, and I was in a pretty big role traveling multiple states across the US, and people would make comments to me like, you can't possibly, you're going to stay home, right? You're not coming back to work, right? And I mean, it's just those types of things where it really makes you kind of sit back and say, you know, why can't I do this? And why do people think this way? And, you know, and it made me want to prove them wrong and really show them that I can do that and then some, right? And I can be even more successful. And I think that's, you know, that is that bias. You know, you would never ask a man that if his wife were expecting, right? Is he going to go back to work? Or, you know, you just wouldn't do that. So it's definitely it still exists. But as Leslie said, it's important to call it out when you see it. And I think more men, that's how really men can support women as well, is to help call it out when they see it, and call it out with each other, and call it out whether it's a by chance meeting at a conference or whatever it is. I mean, I think more people need to call it, see it, say it, right? Use your voice.
You can have some fun with it too. So this little fun side story, but I got invited 50 CEOs to go to a special dinner, and it was at one of the museums, and we got to bring our +1, so we all got to bring our spouses. Well, my husband is 6'5", big boy, wears a really nice suit. And as we were going to this dinner, I looked at him and I said, "You realize, babe, everybody's going to think you're the CEO and I'm the spouse. I'm the plus one.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and he's like, what? No, they won't. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, shall we play a game? Let's see. And I made him
Oh my
aware of it. I made him aware of it because I was like, this is going to be an interesting, setting for us to be in. And he had so much fun with it when because of course people thought he was the CEO. He'd be like, oh no, I'm the plus one. She's the one. She's the baller. Go talk to her. And it was really nice to have that kind of allyship with my husband because it turned the whole night into something so fun when I'm like, I'm like, how many awkward conversations are we going to have?
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, I don't know. You just
That's a
cut
great
right
story.
through it sometimes.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I love it. Yeah.
Love that story. That's a great one. I think it's so ingrained and sometimes people don't even realize that they're doing it. So actually calling it out and making people aware is really important. We've spoken a little bit there about children. How do you think we can be inspiring the young girls and the young boys today who will ultimately become our future leaders? Is there anything you have in your minds for the younger generation?
I'll just tell a really quick story if that's okay. So I have a son, Grayson, and I mentioned to you that I had him, a little bit older, and he naively, I kept thinking having a boy, he's going to see change and diversity. And when you look at the statistics and numbers, I was blown away that generationally speaking, his great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren probably would never see equality. So what I do is I actually expose Grayson as much as possible to events that I'm at and where he sees me up on stage. So I brought him to a award ceremony I had in Chicago last year. It was, probably 300 to 400 women in the audience. He was there with my husband. I was up on stage. He raised his hand to ask a question. He was 5, I think, at the time. But I very intentionally am trying to expose him to situations where he can see equality and be comfortable in those situations and know that he can make change for the future and for the better. That's really important to me for him to see that. And I do believe it starts in the home. I think generationally speaking, that's where a lot of the change needs to happen. So for Grayson to grow up to see peers in the household, co-CEOs, so to speak. So we share everything, if it's cleaning, cooking, whatever it may be, taking care of him, trying to share responsibilities so he can see co-CEOs in the home. I think that's really important. And listen, some of it's innate. He'll come home and say, Mommy, I really love unicorns, but I can't love unicorns because I'm a boy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, only the girls in the class can like unicorns. Where are you picking this up so young?
Right.
I'm reading you books that talk about it. It happens. And a lot of it stems at home and is brought to the schools. So we work really, really hard to teach him at home and then to expose him to situations. He's one person, but then we try to do that with a lot of the work that we do as a group too.
For me, I have 2 daughters that are in college now, both freshman and a sophomore. And I think one of the biggest things that goes back to kind of full circle to our earlier conversation is teaching them to advocate for themselves and teaching them to put themselves out there and try things. Matter of fact, they both rushed for some sororities and they were thinking, well, I'm not good enough, or I'm not, I won't be successful because of X, Y, and Z. And I said, you don't know unless you try, and you have to put yourself out there. And I really feel like that is the biggest thing for me right now and my daughters, is instilling that self-confidence and that belief that you can achieve whatever it is you set your mind to. And yes, there's going to be some disappointments in life, but it's not the disappointment itself, it's what you learn from it and how you take that disappointment and learn from it and grow from it. So I think the advocacy, which I've really seen such a big difference the last couple of years since they've been on their own at school, they are really starting to advocate for themselves. And I think that is really important and will lead them to great places if they can do that. And really, again, as Jeanette said, say yes and just go out there and do it and try for it. I when they were interviewing for the sororities, I said, this is going to happen. You're going to be interviewing for jobs, so many times in the coming years. And this, some of it, sometimes you'll do really well, sometimes you won't, and sometimes you'll get the offer and sometimes you won't. You have to be comfortable in that and know that you yourself put your best foot forward, and that's that's the best that you can do.
I wrote my chapter with this in mind, with the younger generation in mind, and did more of my origin story in Together We Rise. And it's the one thing that has struck me so much with my nieces and nephews, as well as the younger generation at work, is just how they overcome challenges. And when you see a challenge, do you confront it and really work through it, or do you hide from it and pull back? And it's really about to build that resilience, because our life is just made of challenge after challenge after challenge. They don't go away. Once you finish one, another one just pops right up. Sometimes you get 10 at the same time. So
That's
it's
right.
really about building that resilience so that you can, no matter what's going on in your life, you've got the right mindset for it and you can really work through it.
Yeah.
It's such a gift, Jeanette, if you can teach that at a young age.
Yeah.
It could be anything that someone goes through in life, that they can carry that through with them in all times. I agree with you.
I know we're almost out of time. I do have one more question though, which is around women and different cultures. Have you seen any differences in the people from different countries that you've come across, either in personal life or in work life, where you feel women have it sort of differently and different experiences from one another?
Rana and I talk about this topic with each other quite a bit, because we both run global companies. We both travel the world. I've been to 44 different countries and work with people in all different areas around the world. And there are definitely differences culturally when you go to different countries with, how you're even received versus how the teams that you're supporting feel received or feel heard as well. So I always find that I respect the culture that I'm in. I want to work within that culture, but I also want to bring the best of other people out in that culture, where it doesn't put them on the spot, doesn't make them uncomfortable, but where we can really bring their brilliance to light. And it is different in each culture. In America, I can call somebody out on something direct and be as direct as I want to be, and it's all right most of the time. Not in Asia. In Asia, you got to do it in a very, very, diplomatic, very supportive, different kind of way to allow them to save face through it all. So I do find that the cultural differences are quite fascinating with where we're at. And as we're talking about International Women's Day, I mean, my team in Azerbaijan, it's a holiday. It's a national holiday there. In different countries, you have holidays for it where everybody's off work and they're celebrating women, and then in other countries it's not yet, and or it's not really celebrated. So we've got areas where we were far progressed and areas where we have a lot more to go. And the women in those countries are learning, and they're picking that up too from other cultures. So I think that we're on the journey. The journey is nowhere near complete, but it's really fascinating to be able to understand and change your communication style depending upon where you're at.
I think some of these countries seeing that, we're female CEOs gives them, the aspiration, like I can do this too. And I think that really getting them some exposure. I work really hard to try to bring some of the talent, both men and women, right, to the forefront in terms of what are they really good at? What are they passionate about? And not being afraid or fearing to have a voice, whether it's on a meeting or a call. I do CEO chats and have people come together all the time. And I think over the last 3 or 4 years since I've been with the group, with the company that I'm working for, people have really started to say, hey, wow, it's kind of the see it, right? I think I've seen the evolution with the teams, even, and again, Asia is a much different culture, Latin America is very different. And maybe I would say even a bit behind in how they think, but it's our opportunity to show them other ways, as Jeanette said, and bring the best of all cultures in wherever we land in whatever country we're in or visiting or teams we're meeting with.
And I don't ever take offense to it. If you take it personally, that's where you kind of go wrong. When you're traveling someplace else, when you're dealing with other cultures, wherever they're at, meet them where they're at and then show them where it can go, and do that through example. So I think that the way we have those interactions start to really leave a lasting imprint in the places that we are lucky enough to visit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's been some really amazing advice that you've all shared, and really interesting to hear those stories as well. We're just right at the edge of time though, so I know I have to be careful and not take up too much more of your days. So thanks again for taking the time to do this.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you, Lauren, and thanks,
Yeah.
Kyloe.
Okay.
I'll join these lady leaders anytime. It's always a fun
Likewise.
conversation. I always walk away learning something new. So thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.